once an audit was completed, the service had 120 days in which to assess the tax, make it legal, before they could do anything. IRS commonly, or I'm going to say at least 30% of the time, would miss the 23C date.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of reasons for that, because case flows were so big, paperwork would get lost, and the computer system they were using at the time, IDRS, was a disaster. It just didn't function properly. Things got lost, things weren't tracked, etc. But nonetheless, if they blew a 23C date based on the Internal Revenue Manual, now I'm not talking tax code, okay? I'm talking Internal Revenue Manual, what they use themselves. The tax was supposed to be uncollectible, but they often would go out and collect it anyway. And this is one of those cases where they were trying to collect the money anyway, even though they were breaking their own law, okay? So I found out from a friend of mine who had access to IDRS that they had in fact blown the statute.
Yeah.
And I was given this information predicated on I would never rat them out. And I did not. I kept my word. I protected the source. And I called the IRS on the 23C date. That was my mistake. I should have had my client hire a tax attorney who had worked for IRS, and we should have done a discovery. But his life at that point was completely destroyed. He couldn't feed his family. Everything was gone. They had just taken control of every single dime he had and shut and seized his business. Putting 31 or 32 people out of work just days before. So I called them on it, and that changed everything. Okay, they wanted to know how I knew the 23C date had been breached. And I wouldn't tell them. And when I finally was arrested by CID agents for the Internal Revenue Service, I refused again to tell them. I was arrested in a hallway of an apartment building. And when they put me in the car, that's all they wanted to know. Who was it that told me that? If I would tell them who that was, all of this would go away. And I kept bringing up the fact, listen guys, you know, what about the fact that you're collecting this tax illegally? Well, that just got them angrier and angrier at me. So I ended up going to jail. I went to tax court. I was put in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles, where I remained for 92 days before I was released.
Okay.
In Los Angeles. And when I got to my floor, several people had already known that I was an ex-IRS agent. And 5 times I had people try to kick my ass. Now, that was nice of the IRS to do that. Several times, when they would come to get me, to take me to court, they would ask me again, if you tell us who it was that breached IDRS, all this will go away. But I wasn't going to do that, because again, they were in the wrong. I wasn't. They were in the wrong. So I get to tax court, and I have 4 or 5 charges leveled at me. Okay? And they were all bullshit. They were all bullshit charges. In fact, in the end, 3 of them were completely dismissed by the judge. I was given a public defender because everything I had been seized as well by the IRS. I had no documents, no records, no checkbook. I had nothing but the clothes on my back. So I go to court, and the first attorney I'm given has never, ever had a tax case. So I request a new attorney. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I am waist deep in alligators, and I have a 3,000-pound gorilla pounding me on the head, and they give me a public defender that never had dealt with a tax case. So I asked for a second one. I get a second attorney. The tax court judge gives me another attorney. He has no tax court experience either.
Shit.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I request again a judge specifically asking for a public defender that has some tax court experience.
Mm-hmm.
He gives me a third attorney, public defender, who had less total overall experience than the other two, but again, no tax court experience whatsoever. He had been a public defender for less than 3 years. And the judge told me, this is it. You're not getting another one. So I'm like, okay, I'm really screwed here. And I was totally screwed. But, you know, if I had to do the whole thing over again, the only thing I would change is that I would have a client get a tax attorney. Now, meanwhile, I'm in jail, and all my other cases are completely falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And my clients are doing whatever they have to do to protect themselves from this 3,000-pound gorilla. Because I'm not there to defend them anymore. And that's pretty much what happened. I ended up pleading guilty to the least of the 4 charges or 5 charges, whatever it was, to making a false material statement to a government agency. And then I would be released. Well, the situation in MDC was so bad for me that I did. I took the plea thinking that someday down the road I could get an attorney and I could revisit this and I would be able to have it overturned.
Okay.
Well, that just never really happened. Financially, it's been a struggle. There's been a lot of years of struggle, and I've never been able to deal with it, or get it overturned, or revisit it with a really good law firm. Hopefully one day that'll change. So yes, I do in fact have a felony count against me from the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
But now you know the situation. And my detractors, or my critics, are using that so that people will completely dismiss all the information that the Andromedans have passed on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I can't make you believe me. I can't make you not believe me. But what I have told you on the life of my children is true. And that's all I can do. If you decide to throw away all the information, then so be it. That's on you. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. I've not done this for profit. I have not done this for glory. Oh my God. I mean, what glory? You have no idea how difficult it's been to lose the friends that I've had, to lose the partners that I've had, to have my children think I'm insane, to deal with betrayal. You just have no idea. It is something I would never ever do again. So, you know, you're going to do what you want to do anyway. When I will just share this with you, when I got out, the next time I had a contact from RNA Faceas, I brought up to them, do you still want to talk to me? Because a conviction like this is a scarlet letter. It's clearly a mark. It's something that I'm ashamed of. But nonetheless, it's there. And their attitude was, they knew my chains of thoughts. They knew my heart was in the right place. And yes, they still wanted to talk to me. And Morinay even commented that it's absolutely insane to build the hopes of a civilization on a system of currency that is not only real, but is ultimately controlled by a few. And that was it. They dropped it after that.
Yeah.
And I literally have been trying to outrun it all my life. But obviously I can't, so there it is. It's out there. Is that the real reason why I changed my name? No, it is not. I have already dealt with that 2.5 years ago. At the time I started speaking, there was no internet. And my dad was really worried about it coming back to the family. And I've been as clear as I can be about that, and I have nothing to add to that. You take it or leave it, whatever you want to do. You just go for it. Now, to address my critics, there's one in particular who's a representative for another group. He is not a contactee himself, though it appears that it's all about him.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you research Mr. Horn's ex-wife? Why don't you look for her? Why don't you find out what happened to her? That should be very telling for the type of character you're dealing with. There's also a woman going around stating that she's my ex-wife. She's a liar. She is not my ex-wife. She claims to be a Catholic. She practices black magic. She does pentagrams. She puts spells on people. She puts on this persona that she's this wonderful, wonderful woman. No. Don't go there. And then there's the other person. We all have a past.
Yeah.
We all have a past. And he has a past, a drug bust, and I'll just let you figure out who that is. But does that make them all horrible people? No, it does not. What drama? I mean, it is all such drama. And it all takes away from what's really important, and that is the liberation of humanity. Not only physically, but spiritually and mentally.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we need to be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we need to be focusing on what can I do to not only free myself from the dogma, from this prison, okay, but spiritually, what can I do every day to free myself and help free humanity? That is the focus. That has to be the focus of everything we do every single day from this point on. If you want to discard everything I've said, you're free to do that. You will anyway, or you won't. But we have to be focusing on that. The other thing that I want to share is something that Dan Fogelberg wrote a song about. And in talking about it, he talked about, this is obviously before he passed away,
Yeah.
he talked about something that he had read in a book from Still Life with Woodpecker by Tom Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, a discussion came up in this book. Dan Fogelberg, the songwriter, wrote about this. Is the most important question humanity can ask itself. And it's this: how do we make love stay? How do we make love stay with ourselves? In other words, how do we self-empower ourselves with love and make it stay? Make it permanent. Okay? And what I mean by that is not buy into what everybody else tells us about us, because that's really their own crap. Okay? How do we make it stay within ourselves? How do we then project that and be an example of that to our family, of making love stay every day? How do we then, within our family, project that to our community? How do we make love stay within our community? In other words, how do we stand together?